All right, Jeff Yates from Measured Home Services, talking with Josh. How are you, man?
Jeff, I am doing really well today. How about you, sir?
Good, good. Josh and I met 2015. You were at McGraw. You've been a realtor for what, 12 years?
It sounds
12
about right.
years?
It's kind of wild to think it's already been that long.
And then you got your broker's license this year,
Yes, I
believe?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
I finally said I needed to step up and do something a little bit additional on top of the already full plate that I have, and yeah, it's good to go ahead and have that. I
Because
highly recommend.
you just had your first, you and your wife just had your first baby this year.
Very first, yeah,
So you're busy.
it's a little bit of a busy year. It's
Yeah.
crazy to think because he'll be 4 months here pretty soon. So just kind of learning stuff and kind of readjusting my routine around him. So it's his schedule, not mine.
Wow. So I first met Josh back at I guess 10 years ago at McGraw. But I wanted to visit with Josh because he's really involved in, well, he's the Greater Tulsa Association of Realtors president. And how long have you been the president? This year? Is that new?
Correct, yeah. So
Okay.
my term started in January, and I will be serving throughout the remainder of the year, and then come 2026, I will be past president. So it's
Okay.
actually kind of a 3-year commitment. You come in
Okay.
as president-elect, president, and then the next year you're past president. Just that way you have a really good transition period
Yeah. But
for everyone involved.
you also do a lot with National Association of Realtors, and you've been to the Capitol and just real involved on an upper level. So I wanted to visit with you today and get some of your feedback on these things. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
yeah, just give us. Let's start off with just a misconception maybe that the general public has in your mind about just buying and selling, kind of generally speaking.
Shoot, I would say a big misconception that I get from a lot of people. My business has been a little bit more catered towards first-time home buyers. And with that, I think the most common thing that I end up hearing from people that are ready to get into purchasing a home or going from renting to purchasing is, I don't think I can make it happen. My timeline's a little bit further along than I would have expected. And really, when it comes to having that conversation, that misconception is that I'm not ready yet. I think a lot of people have an idea of what the real estate purchasing process looks like, but they don't necessarily know what are those steps that it takes to go from just starting the hunt all the way to getting the keys in your hand at the closing table. So for me, that misconception is you're probably a lot closer than you expect, and it's a matter of finding someone on the finance side who's reputable and easy to communicate with and just going to be a really great team player that will answer those questions for you and just shine a light on you were thinking maybe a year you could actually make something happen within 6 months 3 months, even sooner than that. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think people are probably a little closer than they would
Than they
anticipate.
think. Yeah. So I understand on the real estate sales side, it's kind of a dance between the realtor and making things work and working with the lender to, like you said, see how close they are and what needs to happen. I always tell people on an appraisal side, it's a dance between the appraiser and the bank, and kind of what's the appraiser comfortable with and what will the bank allow and things like that. So yeah, I understand that. What do you think's what would you say is like maybe a trend in the market that people should be paying attention to, or what are you seeing? And maybe that's on a local level or even a national level, since you're involved, again in the upper level. What are you what are your
I would
thoughts?
say, if I was to keep it on a local level, I'm seeing more of a desire for people to have more property, more land. That has been more of a common question that I've been receiving from clients. Maybe they've been living somewhere, in a neighborhood, maybe new construction, kind of a starter home type setup. And it's not buyer's remorse, but it's just a desire to have more elbow room to be able to do stuff, whether it would be with family or just having more room. So I'm seeing more of a drive towards land, and just with the way that pricing and interest rates have gone, people are kind of more further distanced from city areas, and they're going more for the rural type stuff.
Kind of
So
looking for some elbow room.
a little bit of what elbow room, yeah, and it's not necessarily 1,000 acres that people are really looking for. It's more half acre or larger, just so that you have a little bit more property to, I wouldn't want to say maintain, but more pride of ownership for more property. And then I would even say too, a lot of desire for newer construction. I think so many people during the 2020, 2022 timeframe were just trying to get in. Prices were really reasonable. Getting into older homes to work on them, get ready to sell them. And so now with the shortage of inventory we had during that time frame for new construction, more people want to upsize, and so that's where that desire is going, because new construction has a lot of the features that people had hoped for during that time frame, but there wasn't enough of that supply and demand to meet up with what the consumers were wanting. And now that things are actually starting to turn and burn a little bit quicker, you can get more availability for new construction to look at, just depending on the area and the price point that you've got your client's expectations set for.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like the market's cooled off a little bit, at least locally? I,
I
it seems
think
like it has on from my perspective.
I don't have my crystal ball with me in the room right now, but I would say as of right now, I think people are still holding on for hope that interest rates would either level out or go on a downward trend. I think the very serious buyers that have to make something happen are keeping the market moving in a positive direction. Again, I you start seeing 6.5%, 7%, some people even, in the mid sevens as far as their interest rates. That's really what's keeping us in more of a cooling pattern, like you had said, right now, as far as not being able to purchase as consistently like what we've seen in the past several
People aren't
years.
just moving for the fun of it anymore.
No, no, and the funny thing about it is, um, you know, more people are, as far as the buyer side of the transaction, people are not moving as quickly on making purchases, because you saw in 2020, 2022 that, 2 year gap or time frame is that you had to make a decision, you had to make a decision, you had to make a decision. Now, what we're looking at is, because those interest rates are higher, buyers tend to be a little bit more picky about what they're getting into. And so it's not, I have to make a decision by midnight tonight. It's more, let's sit on it, let's think on it, put it under the pillow and dream on it, whatever you want to say. And that has been, in my 2 cents, I think it's actually refreshing,
It still
because
feels like a
people,
seller's market, though.
it still feels like a seller's
Yeah,
market, but I
yeah.
think buyers are taking more time to digest what the inventory looks like before they commit to a purchase. And I am seeing, generally speaking, there is more client satisfaction towards the homes that they're purchasing. Thankfully, I haven't had any customers, and most of my sphere of influence has not had any buyer's remorse, so to speak, for the hasty purchases that had to be made during that time frame. But I do know that was a trend that comes up with newer clients that I pick up. Hey, I bought this. It was a great home for the time frame that we needed it, but we need XYZ as far as a larger home or more yard size, etc. So I just think it's giving buyers a little bit more power in the negotiating process.
So when kind of going along with that, when you talk about people making quick decisions a few years ago when they had to, and now they can kind of set on a little bit more, what would you say is a maybe a mistake that people make, or a misunderstanding either in negotiations, or just the buying process? Let's say negotiations maybe specifically. Um, I mean, even now, what's something that people can avoid when it comes to that?
Something people can avoid in the negotiation process. I think it's really important that as a consumer, you're educated up front. I don't want to say it's something that sets me apart, but it's something I take pride in. When it comes to talking with your client or a past client, you have to let them know everything up front the good, the bad, and the ugly in a real estate transaction, because the last thing you want to go through is, say you are in the purchase process, you've got inspections, they don't necessarily go well. You don't want people to be surprised whenever they have this big list of things that pop up, or they have kind of that moment where they need to recoil and go back a little bit. You let them know this is a time frame for, maybe we need to reconsider this decision, maybe we need to renegotiate accordingly, so that you're ultimately still in the driver's seat in the transaction. You're my client, I want to make sure that I'm meeting and exceeding your needs, but you also have to have a realistic expectation of, if something goes this direction, thankfully not most of the time, but if something does go that direction, here's what we can do to work with it, work around it, or if we need to take a step back or walk from the transaction, here's what you do with that.
Makes total sense. Yeah, when you talk about expectations specifically, um, that's one of the things that we talk about on the appraisal side, because our we do a bunch of um, I'll call it public appraisal work, just not through the bank. So divorce and pre-listing and stuff like that. And a lot of people think that appraisers are, or the appraisal is, this is the number, not to be confused with a little on either side of this or that number. So I always try to set the expectation when we're doing appraisals in those scenarios for the general public is, hey, use this as a guide. And if you're trying to decide, should I be in this price range or this price range, that's where we can be helpful. But if you're trying to decide, between this, real narrow window of price point, then maybe an appraisal is not going to be helpful. But
Well, and I want to kind of tap into what you're saying there, because I think that's a very important point. I've been talking a little bit more on the buyer side of the transaction, but think about listings as well too, right? A lot of what happens with the listing is you get everything set up front, and then anything that happens is a result of discovery during the purchase process with a buyer. So, say for example, I've got an older home, the courthouse is saying this, that's not always the most accurate thing. For the price of a couple $100 and peace of mind, you can have your home measured before you put it on the market. So when your agent is working with you to get the most appropriate price for your home, you've got something much more concrete. So when it comes time for the appraiser to come in, you can use those numbers and say, this is what was measured on that. And that's been a huge thing as far as the listing side, is that peace of mind of knowing that someone has come out professionally, measured the size of my home, even though courthouse says that it's, let's say, a couple hundred square feet off. A couple hundred square feet makes a huge difference when you're comparing it to other home sales in the area. So it goes both ways. I think appraisers, you see them at one part of the transaction, and then that's kind of it. Using a reputable appraiser at the beginning of the transaction also can really provide you that peace of mind, knowing when it gets time for another appraiser to come in, those numbers are going to be very close. And
well,
that's important to me.
realtors don't like appraisers. I get that. I can't say I blame them. No.
I've got a pretty good relationship with the ones I work with, thankfully.
Hey, what's something? This is my last question. Is what's something would you say that you do that kind of sets you apart to help your clients in the buying and selling?
I tapped a little bit into that earlier. I think it's really important to have upfront expectations with your customers. You are not, I'm walking alongside you when it comes to a home purchase. And I don't see it as I'm a coach where I'm telling you exactly what to do. I'm a referee. I'm going to blow the whistle when something's going to happen that is not going to be in the benefit of you as my client. And obviously, there are guidelines that you have to follow. So I have to say that out loud. But I think the most important thing for me is just knowing that this is the biggest financial investment that most people are going to make in their lifetimes. Try to make it as smooth and seamless a process as possible. What are the guidelines looking like as far as what are we doing right here? Because it's almost 184 plus steps, depending on the kind of transaction that you're doing, from the initial conversation to the closing. And then there's things that happen after that. I want to be the resource for my clients before, during, and after the closing on the home. I'm there, I'm available for them. And I think if I want to say that there's anything that sets me apart, they're not just a commission check. I am there for my clients before, during, and after the transaction.
Working for the client instead of for the transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I appreciate your friendship and enjoyed doing business together. And thanks for coming on and chit chatting. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Jeff. I appreciate the invite and the conversation.
All right.